Good morning.
Good morning.
It is Sunday, July 7th, 2024. And our conversation this morning is, what if perfection is not the goal?
Oh my God.
And by goal, I mean, what if it's not the goal of life on Earth? We chose to come to planet Earth for this lifetime. And in our teaching of the science of mind, as taught by our teacher, Dr. Ernest Holmes, we use the word perfection a lot in our affirmative prayer. And things that I was remembering that Dr. Holmes would often use in his affirmative prayers were perfect health, uh, wealth, love, and creative self-expression. And often in treatments for people's body health, he would use words like perfect digestion, perfect assimilation, perfect circulation. And those words spoke to me and helped me with some wonderful health results when I first was in this teaching. And so we can sometimes get the mistaken idea that therefore, if everything is not perfect in our life, we are not using the teaching correctly. And that's a mistake. I really don't believe that we came here to Earth School to have everything be perfect. I think this is a school, it's an experience to balance out and round us and make us a more experienced soul, not to have everything here be perfect. As a matter of fact, I hear many people talk about things like planning the next lifetime with certain challenges, health challenges sometimes, experience challenges others, for them to grow and mature as a soul. So, and certainly we notice as we're getting older, we used to enjoy perfect health. And guess what? Now we have some health challenges. And it's easy to think, well, am I not using the principles that I've been taught? Am I not using affirmative prayer correctly? Is something wrong with me that I'm experiencing less than perfect health?
Yeah, by now I thought I'd be taller.
Well, Jesus did say that in the New Testament.
Yeah.
He said, who among you can increase your height 1 cubit by taking thought? And so that's telling us there are some things that we cannot change with our thinking. Although certainly even the affirmative prayer we use is based on the way that Jesus prayed and the way, according to the New Testament, of how he created miracles. He did not beg for them. He did not manipulate for them. He stated in a positive, firm way, get up and walk to the person who was lame, or now you can see. He used affirmative statements, and we do too. But that doesn't mean that if our life is not perfect, we're doing something wrong or we're not using our teaching. And Bob we were discussing this, and he was talking about perfectionism and how perfectionism can step in and create all kinds of chaos too.
I'm trying to remember. I'll start off by asking you a question, Jennifer. The name of the social worker who did the TED Talks, PhD.
Brene Brown.
Brene Brown. Thank you. Brene, just a little. I'm short of perfection in my memory. Brene Brown did a lot of research, and the conclusion she reached in one of the research projects that she had was that human beings appeared to be often run by the feeling and the belief of not enoughness. And that is huge.
Specifically, that they are not enough.
Yeah, that we believe ourselves without speaking about it to not be enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not clever enough, not rich enough, not whatever the not enoughness, whatever it is, you could put not enough in front of it, and that would be what we're suffering from. And why that's really important is that we end up, I think, often getting hijacked with perfectionism. And I say hijacked, I mean the feeling of not enoughness drives us very often to say, I've got to do better, I've got to do more, I've got to get it perfect. And if I get it perfect, if I can do something perfect or perfectly, then I'll be okay, or I'll be enough. And the problem with that is it's unspoken and often even unrecognized. And so what I've discovered for myself, and I think it's true for the people that I've spent time with, is that we're often doing things to be enough rather than to have joy. We're often doing things to be enough or to feel like we're enough, to overwhelm the feeling of not enoughness rather than to embrace life and living. And so what I think is really, really important for us to do today and every day is to look at ourselves and say, what if I am enough? Could I consider that I am enough? And could I embrace whatever I'm doing with excitement rather than, I hope I can get this done right or right enough or good enough? And at the end of the day, I think we would experience more life and less of that drive that drives away love and drives away, everything that's good for us. I'm going to tack on to that. I've talked to a lot of women who've said to me, it's interesting, the men that I want to go with, that I'm attracted to, are just beautiful. They're beautiful to look at. They're accomplished. And they list all the things. And I say, well, what about the ones that aren't so good looking? Well, I don't know. It's that they're not perfect. And then you talk to them and they'll say, I found somebody and he wasn't perfect and he wasn't beautiful, but he's become so much more. And now I'm in love with and enjoy and value this person because I got past this idea of perfectionism and moved into that this is enough. And I think we do that with each other. And certainly men do this with women. They often look at a woman and if you look perfect and you have enough perfect qualities, then I can have a relationship with you. And the sad part of that is that you're having a relationship with an idea of perfectionism, not with the person.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, in regard to our teaching and what it is and what we can use, I have some information about the Dalai Lama, who, by the way, turned 89 years old yesterday. July 6th is
Wow.
his birthday. And one of the things that he says is that Buddhism is more than a religion. It is a science of the mind. And so
That's interesting.
therein, in the science of mind that we teach, there are some similarities and valuable similarities. The main concept in Buddhism and what they practice with the science of their minds is compassion.
Hmm.
And compassion for others and compassion for
For self.
self. And calm, or COM, means with. So it means with passion or with feeling. And so compassion for others is feeling with them, understanding how they're feeling, and wishing them well. Compassion for ourselves is kindness with self, going easy on ourselves, not expecting perfectionism all the time. You can expect a job well done, you can expect the best you can give, but ease up on the being perfect, because that's just impossible to do all the time. And so this is what he has to say about compassion. He said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. And I think truer words were never spoken. So let's use a little more compassion for self. And another thing he says is, one thing is for certain, given human beings love of truth, justice, peace, and freedom, creating a more compassionate world is a genuine possibility. So I think that is something we need to remember in our teaching, where our vision statement is a world that works for everyone. I know that can seem, especially with our world the way it is right now, we can say, how would that ever be possible? But if it's our vision, if we have compassion for others who have less than us and who desire to have more of what we have, I think it would be possible. He actually has a longer statement of what we could do, and I think this would be a wonderful vision statement for us all. He says, we have a universal responsibility to change the course of history, to guide it in a more positive direction. A universal order that works for the welfare of the whole of humankind and all sentient beings, meaning all animals. Such a civilization with the heart, a planetary society animated by the deepest values of the human family, selfless love, compassion, kindness, non-harming, sharing, and the elimination of poverty, homelessness, disease, hunger, domestic violence, and weapons of mass destruction can become an actuality even in and collectively, even in our lifetimes, if we're willing to work for it. We have this responsibility, both individually and collectively, and this responsibility extends to the whole earth itself. If we can envision it, we can have an alternative. And so that's what I'm inviting us to do, is envision this for the world. And I know that we get stopped when we watch the news and we see these wars that won't seem to stop. And we get to see it in our living rooms and things we would never want to see. It can be hard to hold the vision, but that is part of our teaching, that what we envision, what we affirm, what we expect comes to pass.
Right. What I think is really important is this is all very important, first off, and that's a huge mantra to have for daily living. I think what's often driving us is avoiding bad things rather than enjoying good things. What we tend to do is to do a survey and say, well, nothing bad is happening. Let me see if I can keep that up going. And always anticipating the worst or anticipating the negative, not necessarily even at a conscious level. But when that's the unconscious drive, what do you think you're going to be finding more and more of? You're going to be finding
Right.
more and more of the things to worry about rather than the things to enjoy. I used to, early on in my understanding of science and mind, I would say my body is perfect, every organ is perfect, and I would celebrate in my treatment all of the perfection of my body. At the same time, in the back of my mind, I was saying, God, I wish that was true. And maybe it will be if I say it long enough or loud enough or with enough passion. And then I changed as I think I matured in my understanding and said, thank you, body parts, thank you, cells, for doing the magnificent job you have, for operating at the very highest and the very best that is possible for you. I'm grateful and I have gratitude for your effort. I found myself enjoying my treatment more or my prayer work more. I also found my body was doing better because up until then, it was as if I was saying, okay, you're doing pretty good, but not good enough. You can do better. I'm holding you to a very high standard. And because I'm holding you to a high standard, you will perform well. And the truth is, I've never performed well because I was held to a high standard. I performed well because somebody said, well done. You're doing a good job. Wow. I mean, with all the things going on, like being almost 80 years old and, with everything else that's going on in the world and your world, you're doing a phenomenal job. Somehow that gives me a biochemical boost that is far better for me than what I typically don't realize I'm doing, which is, okay, so far so good. Nothing bad has happened. How can we avoid that? So, and I listen to it all the time when on the radio, they'll be talking about drive carefully to avoid an accident. Now, why don't you drive carefully to enjoy the scenery? Drive carefully into the experience. Allow yourself to savor the feeling of the steering wheel, of the wind around you, or the grace and ease that the car accelerates, or find some things to embrace in your drive. Please don't embrace avoiding an accident. If you do everything to the very best of your ability, even if you have an accident, it will be a spectacular and a grand accident. It will be the accident you will want to talk about later because you did it really well. But I think the big shift for me, and I'm asking you to look at this too, is to look at every minute of your day as an adventure rather than a strategy of avoidance of bad things happening.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is when you get an attaboy, whether you give it to yourself or someone else does, that does more to make you your best than any self-criticism or, decisions, self-talk that we do, that we haven't done enough or done a good enough job, or
Well,
heaven forbid, you should not do a perfect job.
yeah.
You know?
Let me go back to that perfectionism too, and I'd like to suggest that rather than calling yourself a perfectionist or operating because you may be actually operating as a perfectionist, that you begin thinking about what it would be like if I had mastery, which is a process that will last you the rest of your life in any area that you have decided to endeavor into. Mastery is an exciting adventure. Perfectionism, in my experience, often even delays a good outcome. Many people, not everyone, will even put off doing something because they're afraid they can't do it well enough. So what you need to be able to do is to say, I probably won't do it that well because I'm working on mastery. And mastery will be whatever I am with it is as good as it can be, and it will get better because it's by nature it will. I watched it, and we watch a lot of nature programs, and we were watching a cheetah hunting, and we watched the young cheetahs hunting, following, not with the jaguar hunting, the baby jaguars were watching. And the baby jaguars said, okay, I can do that. And they saw an animal and they just jumped out of the woods and thought they'd get it. And what they had to discover was there was stalking, there was planning, there was all kinds of things that required mastery. The good hunter has mastery. He's not perfect. And even a very good hunter with really great mastery loses about 50% of the time. So, you know what? Perfectionism is a deterrent for mastery. Mastery allows you to enjoy the level of perfection you've experienced, but it's always a moving target.
Yes, and I think we are here to learn mastery. Not necessarily in this lifetime. I believe it takes us many lifetimes, but uh, that's different than knowing I'm here to learn and grow and become uh, perhaps a more compassionate person. Perhaps, who knows what your goal was in coming here, but it was to become more of a master. And if we can look at our lives, and I often ask people, what was the most impactful thing that ever happened to you in your life? What made the greatest change in you as a person? How did you grow the most? Nobody has ever answered that question with, well, it was when I was at the highest pinnacle of achievement in myself, or, I graduated cum laude. It was never a peak of their experience. It was always a hardship, something that hurt, something that was difficult, challenging, that they went through, and they became wiser.
Mhm.
They became more compassionate. They became smarter, but smart in the way of wiser. Nobody's ever told me, well, it was when I graduated college or when I did some great achievement. So that leads me to believe that our hardships and the things we've overcome are why we come here to Earth School.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about. We grow more through those challenges. Otherwise, we could just hang around heaven all day, and many people say it sounds a little boring. Just to
Well, a lot of
sit
what
around on the clouds, and maybe have a harp play.
I think somebody invented heaven that didn't have a lot of imagination. It just lacks it. No
I
good
don't think
movies.
there is such a heaven, by the way.
Yeah.
I think we continue to have schools and experiences, but I've been told that actually you can grow faster here in Earth School than you can in the spirit life. So, and that's one of the reasons we choose to come back, because growth, and by growth I mean growth in wisdom, growth in just being an excellent person, is what we're all about.
So I'd like to suggest, and it's a half-baked idea, so you can finish baking it if you want to, that mastery is a process and perfection is the assessment of an event. And we assess the event outcome. And that assessment, unfortunately, takes us away from the experience, and it's often not valid. I know as an artist, I've often had a piece of work that was not successful. In other words, it was nowhere near perfect. And I would set it aside. I used to just to throw it away because I didn't want to have a stack of failures. And now I set them aside. And what I discovered, which is an interesting thing for me, is that a year or two later, when I go back to the thing that I called a failure, what I had was a lack of mastery. What I had was I didn't know what to do next. And if I didn't do the next thing, which now I know how to do, I wouldn't get the outcome that I'm going to get now. And is that the final outcome? There is no final outcome. So mastery is a process, an ever evolving process. And if we're all working on the mastery of loving, the mastery of seeing, the mastery of hearing and integrating, wow, what an exciting adventure. As opposed to, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it. Or I'm trying to do a perfect job so that nobody will say I didn't do it right, or that I'm not good enough.
Right. No, not good enough. And that's an outcome of the way we're raised. Maybe
Yeah.
the religion we were raised. I think Christianity did not do us any favors by saying we're all sinners. That's just not helpful. It is true we all make mistakes, but it's just not helpful.
Yeah, we learned it in school though, when we got an A, B, C, D, or an F. And when we got an F, we weren't told we got a failing grade because we didn't understand the material. We told we were a failure.
And you assumed I'm not as smart as
Yeah, and you're going to get
others.
held back. You're going to be separated from your peers. You're going to be kept from your good because you're not good enough.
Right. And it starts even in your home. We get compared to other siblings. And we notice that our older siblings are smarter than we are and know how to do more than we do. And so it even starts in the family, but it really starts at school. I remember when I first started school, we were categorized as colored birds for how well we read or didn't read. And there were uh, yellow birds, red birds, and blue birds.
I was brown.
And I was in the middle. I was the and I started school at 5, so I certainly didn't know how to read. But and I don't know when they implemented that level of reading. But I know that I assumed because I was in the middle category that I was not very smart. I was not as smart as the smarter people in the class. And interestingly enough, I didn't decide until was in 8th grade and came back to that school system from 4 years of excellent schooling in really a private school in Venezuela. Um, that I was the smartest one in the room. I did better than anybody else. And so I decided I was smart based on school, which is sad. It's just sad. But that's what we decide about ourselves. So I'm asking all of us, let's try to continue envisioning this world that the Dalai Lama described for us, and see a world of peace and love with justice for all. That is even I think what our Constitution says. So we want justice for all, and we want love and peace.
Mhm.
So let's focus on that, not perfection.
Right. Well, we can say, I am whole, perfect, and complete, exactly the
That's
way I
right.
am.
Yeah.
I'm whole, perfect, and complete. I don't need to make any changes. I don't need to do anything differently than I'm doing right now. All I need to do is to allow myself to enjoy the experience. So let's see if we can embrace this life a little more. One of the members of our center has told us before we got started that next week she's going to be dancing while we're having our service. And I thought, and I don't think she's 30 or 40. I think she's a little older than that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was impressed with is there's no age limit on dance, mentally or physically. There's no age limit or time limit or penalty for not having danced. Dance now. Dance in your heart, dance in your mind. Life is an extraordinary dance.
Indeed,
So we're going to go to share screen.
we are.
And for those of you that want to know how you can support us as an organization, just expand that. That's all you got to do. And
Okay. So we invite you to support this ministry. We do have expenses and
Every
we
month.
appreciate your support. And so how you support us is you go to our website, cslpalmbeaches.org, and go to this button, ways to donate. And that will show you how you can support us, and we appreciate it. I also want to point out that we have classes and newsletters, ways to contact us, and spiritual coaching. So if you ever are in need of wanting help with an affirmative prayer, we and our practitioners, and we have 5, are all willing to be available to help you with any problem.
This is
We
your,
don't solve your problem, we do the affirmative prayer.
this is your
that helps
community,
your problem.
so take advantage of it.
And so now I would like to invite you to participate with us as we read the offertory affirmation, which is affirming that as you give, you do receive. So let's say together, my investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is. So
Just
in screen, just let's see.
you did this happen once before.
Okay, let's end the recording.